Hello to everyone. It's great to see you all this evening. Thank you very much for coming out. I hope all of you fared well from our most recent natural disaster. And it's good to see all of you back at work. I was stalling a little bit until our illustrious attorney could get here, get set up. So
My apologies.
But we're glad he's here. So we do have a quorum. Tammy's here, Jimmy, Mickey, myself. Wallace will be here just a little bit later. He will be joining on Zoom. He has an obligation for just a little bit past 5 today. Ray is not coming tonight. He has a family obligation, so that's where we are with those folks. Did everybody get a copy of the agenda? Tammy, you have an agenda. Just so everybody knows, we canceled our business meeting. So tonight is sort of a combination working business meeting so that we can catch up on the things we missed and the things we need to take care of. Does anybody have anything that they want to add or take away from the agenda? Okay. Does everybody get a copy of the minutes from September 19th? Okay. Do I have a motion to approve those minutes? Does anybody have any discussion about those minutes?
Nikki, I move to accept the minutes.
Okay. I have a motion to accept the minutes from September 19th. Do I have a second? Okay, Tammy seconds. Is there any discussion about the minutes? No? Okay. All those in favor of approving those minutes, raise your hand. All right. I wanted to just say a word about Tanya, and I'm very sorry to hear about her mother. And she has been very diligent to take care of board needs, and we certainly have our thoughts and prayers with her during this difficult time. The other thing that the board would like to begin doing is acknowledging a Department of the Month. I feel like the staff here at NCSD works very hard, and all of you are just, you have your heart and soul in it, and it shows. And so this month, we'd like to say a special thank you to our environmental services and our maintenance department for the yeoman work they did on this campus to get everything ready to come back. That was super, super. And I will be in touch with Kayla and Drew about that in the very near future. And to all of the other staff members here tonight and who will see these minutes, this meeting later by video, we thank all of you for coming in when you did and doing the work you did for the children, the stories I've heard about the things that you've done, and Crohn's class, the dormitory, Sandy Manning, Jill, you people that jumped in to help families, and that doesn't go unnoticed. We really appreciate you for doing that. Okay, anybody want to add anything to that? Okay. We have our legal updates. Real quick. Sounds like I'm being haunted over here. And we have our illustrious attorney who, I have to tell you a little story about him. We were supposed to have a Zoom meeting the day of the hurricane. And this man, with no service, no power, nothing, went to a fire department to text me to tell me he was okay. Thank you for doing that. All right, I'm gonna turn it over to you, Mr. Kemp.
Great. Good afternoon. This is Chris. Good afternoon to everyone and to you board members. First and foremost, I just want to recognize also Mr. Patrick and the entire staff here in terms of the effort that was put in to get kids back in school and to also work on submitting the damage request to the General Assembly to have things accounted for. I just very impressed and humbled to be part of the team in terms of working together. I think yesterday was a fantastic example of everyone jumping together to try to get the costs and expenses to the General Assembly. And all we can do now, Mr. Patrick and Ms. Turner, is wait and see what the General Assembly does with those numbers. But I think it was a very good effort to certainly to get that done. I will tell you, just please do keep everyone in Western North Carolina in your thoughts and prayers. I'm asked a lot about Asheville, and my response is always the same. Asheville doesn't need anyone's help. Go 30 minutes in any direction from downtown Asheville, and people desperately still need help and assistance, especially Avery, Mitchell, Yancey counties. Those areas were, everybody had a lot of damage. Those areas were devastated, and families and communities were devastated. So please keep doing what you can do. Don't let Western North Carolina get forgotten when you're talking to other folks. So we still are hoping that Senate Bill 90 will be brought up by the General Assembly before the new long session starts, because if it's not addressed by the General Assembly by the start of the long session, then it will become a brand new bill and we'll have to start over from scratch. Our representative, Representative Blackwell, has said he'll do everything he can. I know that the senators and the representatives for you are doing everything they can to get that heard by December, and we appreciate that. So we'll have an update once that is done. The committees now have your grievance policies. So the committees have grievance policies for staff, for students, and for even community members and complaints and how that would be handled. So those will be coming to you as a board in the near future. The one thing I was asked to cover tonight, just so you can be thinking about it, is the law with regards to the position of your executive director. So I've got a memo to hand out to the board, and this tonight is just for information for you to be thinking about and considering. But what is the law regarding the position of executive director / superintendent, as I call it? You'll see why in a minute. And what are you going to have to do as a board as of July the 1st, 2025? So I've sent this out. There is also, I apologize, I just got to finish. So Madam Vice Chair and others, Jimmy, if you have a copy of it, we'll get it to you as soon as this meeting is over so that you have this. But basically the summary is very simple. Under the current law, all three schools, this school, the Eastern School for the Deaf, and the Governor Moorhead School for the Blind, all three have executive directors who remain in place until June 30th, 2025. Until that time, they do not have to meet the qualifications of a superintendent, and they are protected in their job positions until June 30th, 2025. But as of July 1st, 2025, you are to hire a director who shall be, quote, the equivalent of a superintendent. That's the current law, is that the position of executive director is not superintendent, but legally speaking, it is the equivalent of a superintendent. And again, that has to be done by July 1 of 2025. Senate Bill 90 would change this, the second page of the memo, only in that Senate Bill 90 does change the title of Mr. Patrick's position from executive director to superintendent. So all three schools will have a school superintendent if Senate Bill 90 passes. But again, it's not a material change because if Senate Bill 90 doesn't pass, current House Bill 11 still says that an executive director is the equivalent of a superintendent. So your options are fairly straightforward for you to be thinking about. All three schools, including you, could enter into a negotiation, hire and contract with your current directors to continue in those positions as of July 1st to 2025 and beyond, or you could begin a search. And if you begin a search process, it is customary for the board to say to the current executive director that he would automatically be a candidate, of course, with his consent. So those are the two options. And so you can be thinking about it. The last document I've given you is a sample search calendar. You may be thinking, well, why are we even talking about this in October if we're talking about a position that doesn't get filled until July 1st of next year? Well, the reason is if you elect to engage in a search process, that is a very lengthy, time-consuming, intensive proposition because you are trying to find a leader who, if Senate Bill 90 passes, certainly could have as much as a 4-year contract and will be the extended leader of your school at that point. So this is a typical timeline, and it shows you why you need to be thinking about this now. The other point I'll make before I even go through the timeline, and I'm just going to go very briefly, I'm not going to go through all of these bullets because you really need a whole meeting to think about this. But most good school executives know where they are going to be on July 1st by May 1st. So the best leaders, the best candidates out there will know what their next job is going to be by the beginning of May. So if you're trying to find somebody in late May or early June, then you've already missed out on the best potential candidates at that point. So if you choose to go down this road, you really do need to be working to try to complete it by May 1st. This is completely a draft because it shows you all the mechanics that are involved from posting the position to developing a leadership profile that would involve your entire school staff. It would involve parents. You can certainly form committees that would involve your employees to help come up with the profile of a leader that they're looking for and all the characteristics that you're looking for at that point. The decision to hire, though, belongs to this board and this board alone. So I want to get that out early. You would not create a hiring committee that would involve non-board members. Now, you can have as many advisory committees as you'd like to help advise you, but they would be advising you on characteristics, things of that nature. Typical school boards and community colleges do not have outsiders sit with the group that makes the decision on who to hire, who the candidate is. But you can have advisory committees, and we certainly recommend those to you. Your application needs to be out there for at least 2 months. So you're looking at closing the application deadline sometime in February so that you can then conduct interviews in February and March. You can do background checks, social media checks, reference checks, all those things that you need to do, and then be looking at a final contract negotiation by late April and trying to hire somebody by the beginning of May. You can do it yourself, and our law firm is not a search firm. Let me say that again. Our law firm is not a search firm. We do not offer search services. If you want a search firm that will actually go out and recruit candidates, you need to explore that. That would be an outside firm. What we provide is whatever you need in terms of support. We can assist with applications, posting. I will say I think we are very good at reference checks because instead of just calling people and chatting with them, we have attorneys that call and go through a 45-minute to an hour interview with standard questions, and then you get all that information. So instead of a search consultant just saying, I talked to the references and they said A, B, or C, from us, if you want us to do the reference checks, you'll get a notebook that will have exactly what people said, what their history is with the candidate, all of that. You can tell, I feel very strongly that reference checks should be done correctly. They shouldn't be just somebody telling you that they talked to a few folks and everything sounded fine, which can happen from time to time. If you're, any estimate that you're thinking about, probably in the $40,000 range when you're talking about consultants and reference checks and having people come for interviews and whatnot. So your budget and finance committee will need to be thinking about that particular line item. Can you do some fundraising? Is there a foundation or some other source that might help you out if you choose to do a search that might cost that much money? So again, just something for you to be thinking about. And again, I think the options that you've got in front of you are fairly straightforward. So I'd be happy to answer any questions that anybody might have.
Any of the board members have any questions?
So if the board makes the decision to open a search, then I have to apply for my current position.
Yes, so what is typical is to say that you are automatically a candidate, again, with your consent. Because it's not reasonable to ask you to apply, but the board would want to know that you'd want to continue in the position. So you would automatically be a candidate, would be my recommendation, automatically. Yeah. Now, of course, you would want to supplement whatever information you'd want them to have and things of that nature. Correct. You're welcome.
Any other questions? Okay, that gives us something to determine
And I know I said this, but this does apply to all three schools.
Yes.
This is a decision that the boards of trustees will be making across the state.
Yes. And so, we have, a timeline put out to us. I will, say to the board that I do think that, probably no later than our November business meeting, we should, be thinking about making a decision which way we want to go with this. And in terms of that, I will state this too, we need to think about, we had at some point been talking about using a headhunter firm, and all of us have been given assignments to do reference checks on the schools that they've worked with. And if we decide to post an application process, we need to think about how we want to use a headhunter firm. Do we want to use that for a principal position, or do we want to use that for a superintendent position? So that's something else we will be deciding in the next month or so. Thank you very much, Mr. Kemp. Appreciate that. Committee updates. Wallace, it's good to see you. Glad to have you. Did you have a chance to talk to Hannah at all on how we're doing with last year's budget?
Hi, this is Wallace, and unfortunately, I have not had a chance to connect with Hannah, so I don't have an update today, but I'll definitely plan to have one before the next business meeting.
Okay. Mark, do you have any idea how we're doing on our budget? Since we haven't gotten anything new from the legislature, and we're operating on last year's monies, how are we doing?
And this is Mark, and I would say we are trying to be very careful. The biggest question right now is the transportation funds, because they're spending no matter what, because we're driving and picking up children. And we're utilizing the buses and the gasoline that goes with them. The other expenditures would be right in line. Of course, we've got some storm damage that we're having to utilize funds that was not expected, especially with food replacements and things like that. The CEP program simply can't recover from that, but by the end of the year, there is always a little bit of a buffer in there. So as far as typical line items go, we would be kind of neck and neck, but the transportation is what's going to eat away quickly, and then the legal service costs. Those are kind of side items.
If we could, for next month's business meeting, get an updated budget and, get that to Wallace before the meeting, that would be great. Because I think we're all aware that we're operating on slimmer funds. So we have to, and let me commend Tammy, Candace, and some of our board members who have been utilizing Sorensen so that we can save some on our committee meeting. So thank you very much for doing that.
And Sandy, this is Mark, and we will have to wait until month end to be able to have the reports generated, and typically those are available 4th or 5th of the month. So I'll ask for Hannah to request that out of IBIS, and then we can share that with everybody. But Wallace, it will be 4th or 5th. And you shaking your head like you know that, so.
Yeah, I understand. Yeah. And to confirm, the fiscal year begins July 1. So we're really kind of just getting started in terms of operational expenses. Correct?
That is correct. And this is Mark. And that's correct. And we also have to remember that we didn't have the students and staff back until August.
Yeah.
So transportation funds, there would have been none in July and then a portion of August. So we have to start looking. And then in September, of course, we had a hurricane. So the numbers are certainly not going to be what we would typically see with this. Kind of across the board, actually.
Yeah. Understood.
Okay, we have several policies that we need to look at this evening and do an adoption of. This one.
There we go. Okay, so. Can hear myself. Oh, okay, sorry. That's the problem. Just don't clap. Some things never change, me and technology. Do not get along well. So I was given, my committee was given the 10 policies to review. As we've talked about in the past when we've done this, what I do is I take the policies, I assign at least 2 people to each policy, a board member, and hopefully a member of staff that has expertise or knowledge in that specific area of that policy. Sometimes we just go ahead and do 2 board members. But we have had at least 2 sets of eyes on each policy, including before we ever see it, of course, Chris and the firm have also looked and made suggestions, additions, deletions. So first, we have 6 policies that are going ahead as written, and I'm just going to quickly name what those were. The first one was parental inspection of and objection to instructional materials. That's 3210. The responsible use of technology, which is quite big, 3225. Use of personal technology to conduct school business, that was 3228, and Eric helped us with that one, overlooked it and thought it was fine. Criminal behavior, 4335. Workday and overtime is 7,500, and Leslie helped us out with that. And last, I think this was kind of funny, pest management, 9205. I had to think. Oh, yeah. No.
I helped with that.
Yeah. So all those will be submitted in a minute as, we'd like to accept those, approve those as they are already written. Now, we go to the ones that have had some addition and in one case, I think, a deletion. Let me save this one for it. All right, the first one that has had one small change to it is the Comprehensive Health Education Program, and that's 3540. Talks about what's included in the health education program, depending on child's age and grade level. The parents have opportunities to review those materials and withhold consent if they choose to do that. And then the standards for instruction, and that's when we're talking about especially sexual health. And I personally feel like that's a very, very important thing that children learn at school and also at home. And it really doesn't matter what that child, whether they're gonna be a rocket scientist or whether they might be in a shelter workshop, they need to know the information about sexual health and reproduction. So we have added a sentence at the very end of that section C, standards for instruction, that says, if the instructor feels it is necessary in order to clearly convey the meaning of this information, the services of a certified interpreter and possibly a certified deaf interpreter will be provided. So that was the one change to 3540. Then student health services, policy 6120, Caitlin, the head of Student Health Center, helped us with that. She has just added a couple of things. In the first section, section A, which is student health services in general, in the second paragraph, it says the director may develop procedures or delegate the development of procedures to each principal for providing these health services and meeting the board requirements. We have changed that to say the director, the school director, and or the student health services director may develop procedures. Okay, so, and then number one, the point number one under there is talking about trainings for staff to respond to medical needs, medical emergencies. And we have added that all teachers, TAs, BPTs, school office staff, bus drivers must take training, and that includes residential staff. And lastly, for that one, under the 7th point, says parents and students must be afforded all rights provided by the Family Educational Rights and Privacy Act, which is called FERPA. And we are adding after FERPA also HIPAA, the Health Insurance Portability and Accountability Act, because our nurse informs us they also still use HIPAA and adhere to its regulations. So that, there we go. Then there was number 9210, care and maintenance of grounds and outdoor equipment. And the last paragraph of that says that the principal shall inspect playgrounds and outdoor equipment for hazards on a regular basis. So since we have a very qualified school safety officer working here in CSC, we thought it would be prudent to change principal to the school safety officer will inspect playgrounds and outdoor equipment.
I see a nod from the interim principal. See a nod from the interim principal.
All right, and lastly, this was quite lengthy, and we have several additions and changes. It's selection of instructional materials. 3,200. Chris, you help me with this if you're off track. So the first section A is selection of textbooks. And when House Bill 11 passed, one of the things included in that bill that created us, the Board of Trustees for the 3 schools, it also gave us the right to choose our own materials. And so the section that says the Central Curriculum Committee for a school through its school improvement plan may submit a request for the use of alternative textbooks. The request should identify how the committee or school has ensured that the curriculum will continue to be aligned with the state instructional standards and to meet the educational goals of the board. I think it says board. So that has been deleted by the law firm because we now do not have to adhere to that because of House Bill 11. The board recognizes the North Carolina School for the Deaf serves a unique population of students, so the board has the authority to approve the use of any curriculum designed specifically for deaf, hard of hearing, and deafblind students. And I missed a section where it's talking about the selection materials. We have also added accessibility option must be a priority when considering the selection and adoption of textbooks, interventions, and supplemental materials for deaf, hard of hearing, and deafblind students. Under section B, talking about the selection of supplementary materials, it has been added to say the board shall have sole authority to select and procure supplemental instructional materials, whether or not the materials contain commercial advertising pursuant to the provisions of General Statute 115C-9AB. Then the second page is objectives for selection of supplementary materials. And I have to say that we had some help. We knew we wanted to make it very specific for deaf and hard of hearing students. So Dr. Jana Wallace looked these over and to that section has added 2 objectives. One is to continue to develop a special collection of resources for deaf students that provides information about communication, social issues, educational issues, and deaf culture and history. And the last point or objective is to develop a family library connection that provides a variety of resources for families of deaf and hard of hearing students. The second point is the process and their criteria for selecting these supplementary materials. And added onto that, we have stated at the end of that first paragraph, deaf staff who are fluent users of American Sign Language and experienced deaf educators should be well represented on this committee. And as we go down to the points under that, we have added 2 things. One is the material suitability for use with deaf students when assessed based on the characteristics of high quality literacy materials to use with deaf learners. And also, no, that's it, that only one, I'm sorry. And then on the very last page, where it has legal references and cross references, that has also been deleted. So that is those 10 policies, 6 that we want to accept as written, 4 we'd like to accept as with the additions and deletions. So I would like to ask for a motion to accept policies.
As a committee motion, it doesn't require a second. So you can just put it forward as a committee motion and then we can have discussion.
Okay. So, as a committee, we would like to move that these policies are accepted as I have just discussed.
Okay.
Is there any discussion?
Chris has a question.
Okay,
Just a clarification, not a question, especially for the staff. You may have heard that the definition of supplemental materials, or it was stated that the board pursuant to law has the authority to approve supplementary materials. Later in the policy, the board delegates that to the professional staff. So those of you that were listening keenly know the Board of Trustees will not be deciding the precise materials that you use to teach your students. You will be deciding which materials to use through your director and through your committees at the school level. So the actual selection of materials is delegated to the professional staff. Ultimate authority over all materials lies with the Board of Trustees, just like it lies with the Board of Education in other K-12 schools.
Okay, is there other discussion? Well, I'm just gonna make one comment about the fact that this kind of gives us the opportunity to begin to select and look at curriculums that definitely meet the needs of our deaf children and our hard of hearing children. And get back to a more hands-on type of thing. And I thank the committee for all their hard work and diligence on that. I appreciate it very much. Other discussion on these policies? Jimmy? I think that would be up to curriculum committee and the educational part of the school setup. But yeah, that's a good question and something to definitely look into.
perspective, but that's going to be what's the best way to do it.
And Jimmy, I agree that here in residential schools for the deaf is a great place for us to involve deaf instruction to our deaf. And it sets us apart from public school. Any other discussion? Ready to vote? Wallace, you got anything you want to add? Tammy? You have anything you want to add? Ready to vote? Okay, I've got a motion that these are on the table. All in favor of adopting the policies that have been given to us by the policy committee, raise your hand.
This is Tammy. Do we not need a second? Oh, okay.
Tammy, to clarify your question, Chris said that since it was being,
Oh,
A
this is
committee's
Tammy. I was
motion.
going to clarify my question.
Yes,
Did
about
I
a
need
second.
to, do a
since
second?
this was a committee motion, it didn't need a second because it came straight from the committee, so that's why we didn't have a second. Okay,
I see. Thank you. Thank you for clarifying.
thank you very much. Appreciate that, Mickey. So now we're off to human resources and Dr. Tate. And just so the audience knows, we were to have a human resource meeting yesterday, and we put it off until today. So, we are going to add it to our agenda today. One thing I do want to say before I turn it over to Dr. Tate, the policies that are being adopted by the board are new policies. They're new to the staff. They're new to all the staff, and they include all the staff. So please make an appointment with Leslie Sane, who is our HR director, and let her have an opportunity to sit with you either in small groups, individually, whatever suits you best, and go over all of these policies so that everybody has a clear understanding of the things that have been passed and are in the works to be passed. Yes,
Also, I meant to say that the policies are in Tanya's office in a notebook, so if you want to see them, then that's where you can find a copy and probably make a copy for yourself for certain policies.
I'm sorry, we had a little private conversation about the policy papers.
I'm sorry, it was not neatly typed, Chris. I was.
Oh, no, very nice handwriting.
Okay, back to Dr. Tate.
Thank you. You have already said most of what I was going to say, but yes, we had a committee meeting scheduled for yesterday that ended up being canceled, which we will be discussing this evening in a closed session as part of our personnel issue is listed on the agenda. So again, just want to reiterate what Sandy has shared. These policies are quite complex. There is quite a bit to them. There's a lot of, details that need to be very exact and precise. It's a lot of legalese and trying to make sure that we're making this reader friendly for everybody, that everybody can have access to these policies. We want to pick the key policies that are really going to be the most important, that need to be clarified as far as readability for everybody to understand. And so we appreciate feedback as well from you. We want to make sure what we're doing is clear. And that's my part. That's what we've been working. I don't know if adding also for the grievance policy, was there anything else with that procedure that we need to go over?
I think that any discussion at the board level should wait for the committee review in the first instance. Yeah, but I think, again, the bottom line that Ms. Sane will be working on employee and parent-friendly training materials is a key point to make that will kind of summarize those policies so that folks don't get caught up in the legalese too much.
Exactly. And that was really all I had for my report as of right now. Can't think of anything else.
Those will be in closed session.
Yeah.
Okay, Jimmy, do you have anything for marketing?
Yes. So I've already reached out to a few staff here at NCSD related to marketing, so we could set up a marketing committee. But with the hurricane, well, that just messed up our schedule. So we don't have a report yet, but let's give it some time. We got to get everything settled down after the disaster. And we are working on marketing committee, getting that set up, getting it going. And it's gonna be a little bit of a slow process, but there will be more to report later. And we've got a plan of what we're gonna do. And the vision is it's gonna look like for marketing and publicity out in the community, parents, getting those folks involved. And the first program would be the robotics
FAA.
and
club.
FAA, different clubs. And we want that marketed and publicized. We could do Instagram, Facebook, all different types, all different platforms of social media. And then secondly, we would like to have, one sec. We'll go back to the second thing, success stories. Awards and success stories, especially with former students, current students. And that's what we want to emphasize on that part. Community relations, NCSD Foundation, that kind of support, Alder Springs, local businesses, students, alumni, employees, just success stories that are happening. And if anybody here, if we've got our committees, we've got things that we want to publicize, if you all have things, we also want parents and alumni, the Board of Trustees. We want folks to be recognized for success, for things that are happening that are in the successful realm. Trula Baker is working on that, and there'll be more information coming down the road. And this is Tammy. This is Tammy. So, will your committee, Jimmy, assign a person, or will you have a staff person who is going to be like the marketing publicity coordinator? This is Jimmy. So staff at NCSD, it's going to depend on what their expertise is, their experiences with the school, what the things that they do. They'll give us feedback, and we're going to all work together and coordinate that. And then that way, we'll continue to market in a successful way. I think, we haven't shared a lot out in the community. It's just been very superficial. So we'd like to change that. And we'll have a small committee for now, nine folks. We don't want a large committee. We want a small committee, but as time goes on, I feel like that we might even make that pool of people larger. I think it might be easier if you just had one person, this is Tammy, one person who's in charge of that, instead of having all these people throw things in. If you've got one point person who's collecting all that information, get it narrowed down so that way you've kind of streamlined your information. Yes, I see your point, Jimmy says.
Tammy, this is Sandy. Really what is going to happen is Jimmy and Trula will be the head of this, and they will be directing all of the committee work. So all of the subcommittees will come back to them, and then they'll bring it to the board. So we'll be hearing from Jimmy and Trula. So that'll be good.
And this is Tammy. That's great. Perfect.
Okay. And speaking of Tammy, do you have something from the parental plan that you'd like to give us today?
Yeah, this is Tammy. So with the parental plan committee, we met this morning. We were supposed to meet this morning, but we didn't have any parents who showed up, so we didn't meet. So we're just trying to recruit some parents, and we'd like to get grandparents as well. Folks who are in their retirement ages, that's perfectly fine. We can include them as well. So we've got parents, grandparents, and then we will have that meeting later.
To see if there were already look to see if there were already parental planning in North Carolina, anywhere else that we could look at to garner ideas from as well. So we've been looking into other areas across the state.
Thank you very much. We do have in the works, our residential life committee. We're working on that as we go along. Your curriculum committee, have any?
This is Mickey. No, we have not met. We have been in contact through email. They probably think this is the easiest committee they've ever been appointed to, but we will meet, especially now that we have this policy about selection of materials. But we have not met, but we will.
All right, that takes us through our committees. And the only old business that I have was the documentation on the data that. Okay, I'm sorry. I didn't see your hand.
So the communication,
thought-
procedural committee.
Okay. Dr. Tate, would you go
Do you
ahead
want-
and
do we
go
wanna
ahead
review that?
with
I
the
mean-
communication policy?
Thank you. Yeah. Thank you, Madam Chair. Yes. We have begun working on the communication policies. And that has been a big review. We're making a lot of revisions to that policy. And we are going to be meeting tomorrow from 11 to 1. Or 11:30 to 1, and we're going to be continuing that work, making those revisions. And then, assuming we're all in agreement, we should be able to submit those to the board and legal. And once legal gets that back to us, then we'll go from there.
Give them to you.
And I'm done. It's all you.
Okay. Back to, scoring accountability. Mark, I did see your email about that you have requested that information for Mickey, and I'll let you talk about that.
And this is Mark. And yes, I requested it the day after the meeting. And I suspect what the issue is that the regional accountability center doesn't really have us in the system because we don't currently have a report card. And while our students' information is there are not report cards that are automatically generated and then populated to districts because there hasn't been. And so I suspect that John and Eric are trying to figure out how do we present this? But the bigger reason for that probably is because you can't look at data if you do not have an end. From quantitative as well as quantitative data requires that you have a minimum of 10.
Right.
That's the end. And none of us have 10. 2 years ago, when we were trying to complete the LEA self-assessment for the special education department, they even put the two schools together, and we still didn't have an end except for in one category. And so really, data that is presented really is data. It's just numbers because we don't have an end. And so we continue just to wait for whatever information or how he feels that information can be shared.
This is Mickey. I understand what you're saying, and I know that groups are very small. Would it be possible to, just for somebody to physically go through a class, for example, a fourth grade, and say, so many fourth graders took the reading and math assessment. This many were at grade level, this many were below, this many were above. And just something as simple as that. Could you get that from the records you have at school?
And this is Mark, and I think that that's the information that we have already on the advisory council reports, the advisory council summaries that are posted online.
Okay.
I thought it did say that if it was a grade level. Now I would have to go back and look at what Kelsey put in there.
Okay, so I need to look at the advisory council report,
Year in some.
year in summer. Okay, thank you so much.
And this is Sandy, the reason we really want to know this kind of thing is we're a brand new board, and it would help us to know how many children, students that we have on grade level, how many are below grade level, how many are above grade level. Because to know where you're going, you have to know where you are. And it would give us a great baseline if we knew where our students are. Right now, it's been good to know in August as we came in and know how our students are ranking as far as grade level and that kind of
And this is Mark, and we will certainly continue to try to collect some of that.
And this is Nikki, and I will look for that. I was not aware of that, or if I was, it's gone somewhere. So.
Okay. Does anybody on the board have any other old business you want to talk about? Remember, this is a combination working and business session. So if you have anything that you want to just jump in with, let me know. Okay, for new business, Mark, your school director's report.
So I presented with the numbers of the students that we currently have. Those did not change. However, we do have one student that is in a possible transition back to the home district per the parent request. And then we do have a new student that we just completed the admissions process yesterday with, and that student will be coming to join on a temporary status. So we're excited about having that student come up. The next thing is we had, as we spoke in our last meeting, the UNCG licensed deaf and ed part of the hearing licensure program. The new program director was coming actually tomorrow. We're going to be able to meet with all of our staff members, last Friday, and to meet with all of our staff members that do not have a full and clear license for deaf and hard of hearing. Because of everything that was happening, she called and said, "Oh, we're gonna let that go." And she and I are currently working on getting that rescheduled. The next thing is the earthquake drill was completed today at 10:17. Of course, that's an actual drill, so the students and staff members enjoyed getting down on the floor and shaking with the rest of the United States. And the students did a good job of that. Next, we have not made a decision yet in regards to a makeup day for homecoming. I was trying desperately to work with Jimmy to try to pair the makeup homecoming to go along with the 80th anniversary for the Historical Museum reception. And Drew and other maintenance men do not feel like that by November the 8th, that the campus will be ready for a large number of visitors to be able to come safely, especially with having so many trees down in the lawn where we typically park so many vehicles. And so we continue to try to look at potentially a spring date. And then, of course, we were waiting for a decision in regarding the golf tournament as well. And I heard your comments yesterday. So once we get a decision of no on that, then we will begin to look about a springtime potentially for a mega for homecoming. But we do want to ensure that the campus is back, as certainly aesthetically pleasing and ensuring safety for our visitors. We have a large number of roads and sidewalks that are really broken from the recent equipment. And so we want to ensure that those are handled appropriately so that no one, especially our older alumni, come and potentially take us to it. I haven't heard back from the rescheduling the legislative tour. The, Brian Eppley with the county is certainly has many other things that are far above that. Now, his office has not been contacted when I spoke with them yesterday. And so I will keep the board updated if I receive a call in regards to that. And then as far as hurricane information, I shared a lot of information on the Google Drive as far as pictures that we procured from Facebook, from our own maintenance men, et cetera, to be able to have a real collective item bank for that in case those are actually needed in a future time. We worked really hard yesterday for several days, actually, collecting the information to be able to complete the required spreadsheet for the Office of State Business Management. We actually met in 2 different meetings yesterday and increased those costs just a little bit to ensure that, and added some things that we didn't think we should have on there, but we went ahead and made the decision to put them on there. And so that was successfully uploaded to OSBM last night after Alex and I phoned call about 6:30. The next thing that we really need to look at and consider is the school calendar. We did lose 8 school days. The legislative group, as well as the Board of Ed, have made the decision to waive 20 days for everybody. So 20 days. Everybody gets 20 days free. All of those 2 very large packets are uploaded into the hurricane folder. When you look at, when we as school leaders have to begin to look at makeup days for calendars, you have to remember that you have makeup days for spring, and you have makeup days for fall, because you have 2 semesters. Because we are running the 90-day, 90-minute block schedule. And so we would need to look at, the students have actually missed the days this year. And so we would want to look at that. But when we look at the school calendar, there's really only 1 day of an option for that. And so I articulated that there in my board report for us to be able to look at and consider. November the 15th is a mandatory workday. That is a professional development day, where we certainly could have students come and have a full day. There are no other days. The only other workday that there is the workday right before Christmas, but that's the mandatory workday at the end of the night, at the end of the semester. And teachers have responsibilities on that day that they would have to still be able to have that day to follow all of those things. So that is something that I would want to bring to you all. You all will need to consider that. If that's something that you want to look at, certainly that can go to a committee and then be brought back. There's really no timeline on that, since we would be adding a day, not taking away a day. Next on the agenda, we spoke about the testing summary. I did ask Chris a question about the student improvement team, and I think he's probably working on that. And then as far as the impact from Helene, I kind of went back through and articulated how we need to look at semester as well as block schedule, and then look at how many days that we had, and articulated some information there for everybody, and then articulated that the students went home on Thursday, the 26th, and then we had an optional teacher workday for residential life, 2nd and 3rd on the 26th. And then we had an optional teacher workday on Friday, the 27th. Now, that ended up becoming a mandatory closure day because of electricity. And the 4 teachers and teacher assistants that were here, we sent them home, and then maintenance staff continued to try to look and see what damage was already going on. And then they came back, of course, on Saturday and began the tremendous work of getting the staff back. And then we transitioned, when we were out the whole week. And then the next week, once we were able to get in contact with Cisco or our food provider, and we knew that we were going to be able to have food on Tuesday, then we started tiring people back in because we knew that we were going to be able to feed supper that night. And then at a traditional day, and we have to commend Sandy Manning and the entire academic department. They have done a beautiful job with re-engaging the children back into the learning environment, with doing lots of pre-teaching, post-teaching, and those kinds of things. She articulated her plan in leadership, and it was quite lovely. So I really appreciate all the work. And then we cannot not say something about the residential life staff. They received students back on the buses on Tuesday that had not bathed in 12 days, and that had not eaten. And so they were really working through some of those. A couple families sent all of their laundry. They have washed all of that, sent back on the buses. So, and then we are also working with our school counselor as well as our school social workers in conjunction with our dormitory staff to send as much items are necessary to these families that still have, are missing so much. So we even ran 2 buses last week to Asheville because there was not enough room in the bus for all this stuff. So we just ran 2 buses to get all that stuff there. So a true congratulations to both academic and residential for the amazing work that they've done on that. And that's all.
Okay, is that report in Google Drive? Okay. I look, I couldn't find it. But that's not unusual.
I'll look right now and see.
Okay, now, you mentioned school improvement team. Are you going to continue to have a school improvement team?
And that's a question for the board, because there's been some concerns noted during board meetings of whether it was required, not required, desired. And so that was the reason why I reached out for some clarification on that. Typically the school improvement team is the artery, is the heartbeat of the school. It's your teacher leaders, they're voted in, parental representation and that kind of thing, to really make those big decisions for principals to make recommendations to superintendents and then superintendents. So that would be.
Why don't the curriculum committee and the principal and, you don't have an educational coach yet, right? Okay. Why don't you all sit down with Sandy and talk about how we want to do that, and then bring that back to the board. Okay? Okay. Anything else need to be discussed in open session, Chris? No? Okay. I'm looking. I want to make sure I see everybody. Okay. In that case, we will take a motion to go into closed session for several items, personnel being one.
Do we have student matters in closed session?
Yes.
Do we have student matters? Yes, we did. Okay. So the motion would be pursuant to General Statute 143-318.11A1 to discuss confidential personnel matters pursuant to House Bill 11, and under subsection A1 to discuss confidential student matters under FERPA and Chapter 115C, and under subsection A3 to discuss matters covered by the attorney-client privilege.
I love the way you do that. I'll need a so moved, please. So moved. Okay, second.
This is
Jimmy.
Jimmy, I second.
Okay. All in favor, raise your hand. And we will go into closed session. Again, folks, thank you so much for being here this evening. We appreciate your attendance. Next time, bring a buddy.
And who has subbed? Who has subbed on you tonight? Oh, no subs are on tonight.
That's right. And of course, we want whatever time that she needs. Yeah, I did email all of you that the services are on Sunday. I will all there just to make sure that
Needs to,
we represent.
okay. How's that? The next thing.
Mark, this is Danette. I missed what you said. I missed what you said.
Yes.
What on Sunday?
Tanya's mother's
We'll have lots of
service
conversations.
is on Sunday. I'm so sorry.
Yeah, I missed that.
No problem at all.
Okay, I need, just so, Aaron, have you got the recording started? Okay. There was a motion made by Mickey to go back into open session.
Tammy's just asking, yeah, the recording is on, just making sure.
And I'm reviewing for the recording that Mickey made the motion for us to go back to open session. And, Jimmy, Tammy, and Wallace all seconded.
I always tell Tanya, just get.
Okay, we need to, as a board, we need to vote on the 3 personnel issues that we had. We have Ajante, and just by raising your hand, will you tell me if you want to do all of these 3 together? Just raise your hand if you want to do all 3 together.
Tammy's asking a question.
Yes, Nick?
Remind me how to spell Ajante.
Ajonte. Okay, we have 1 residential life trainer.
Tammy says, I've got a question. I thought we were recommending the positions that were by HR approved, and we don't have to do the names? Do we do the names? I thought we weren't doing the names. I thought we were just doing, voting on positions.
The 3. I'm asking if you're all right. I know, don't say the
Okay.
name out loud. I'm asking Tammy if everybody's okay just to approve the 3 positions
In what-
without going into RTL and separate. Okay, all right. All in favor of the 3 positions discussed in closed session, raise your hand. And that is unanimous. And with that, I ask for a motion to adjourn.
I move.
Second. Don't everybody raise your hand.
Tammy said, I move.
Good to see
All
you.
second.
Thank you.
Okay, we're adjourned.
That's no way.